For this lesson, we're going to be talking about transformations, and this time we're talking about rotations on the coordinate plane. So I have a very, very handy little chart that helps us remember the rotation rules. Notice there's a clockwise and a counterclockwise direction. And our 90 degrees clockwise rule is the same as the 270 degrees counterclockwise. And the transformation rule for 90 degrees, notice X and Y, will change where Y and X change locations, but the X does turn to the opposite of whatever it is. For the clockwise and counterclockwise of 180, it's the same rule of the ordered pair of XY, where notice that the X turns the opposite and so does the Y. And then when we have clockwise 270 degrees, which it's the same rule for counterclockwise 90 degrees, the transformation rule is XY. And what happens is, notice the numbers change the locations and the Y turns the opposite and the X stays the same. So when we're talking about rotations, notice on the coordinate plane, the center of rotation is the origin, and this is the type of thing that we're going to be doing. And we will only graph one of them, but we will be totally going back to the rules, the chart, writing the transformation rule to make sure we get it into our memory bank. So for question number 1, or example 1, triangle RUS is rotated 180 degrees about the origin, and they want us to graph remember, the image is where you end up, where you have your prime marks. The pre-image where you start is just your RUS. So we're going to do it in 3 steps. So here we do have our graph, and this is triangle RUS. What we're going to do is we're going to record the coordinates of triangle RUS. So I know, and I'm looking at R, and I think I'll put it right here. My ordered pair for R is a -1 and a 4. And I'm going to just list them all. My U is a -1 and a 1. And my S is at a -3 and a 1. So as I'm looking at this, I do know that I am going to now follow the rotation rule. And the rotation rule says, and I'm going to write it right up where we're working, when we start with our X and Y, which we do have it listed here, the X and Y will stay in the same location, but they will turn to the opposite of whatever they are. So this is the rule that we're following. So for R prime, we notice that and we know this is X, this is Y. Our X is a -1 and it turns the opposite. So it's going to be a +1. The Y is a 4, it turns the opposite. It will be a -4. Let's go to our U prime. Our X is at a -1. So again, it's going to be a +1. Our Y is a 1, and so it will be the opposite. So it will be a -1. Going to our S, we have a -3 and a 1. So our S prime is going to be the opposite is a +3, and the opposite of a -1, a +1 is a -1. So now we are going to actually graph these 3 points on this grid. So I'm going to 1 and -4. So here is 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm putting my point there, and that is my R prime. I'm going to the 1 and a -1. Here's 1 and -1, and that will be my U prime. And then I'm going to go to where I have a 3 and a -1. So 1, 2, 3, negative 1, and that will be my S prime. I am going to connect those 3 points. Sorry about not drawing that line very straight. It's really hard. That's going to bother me, so I'm going to kind of straighten it out. There we go. So when we see this is the pre-image, this is our image, the reflection is 180 degrees about the origin. Okay, so again, chart, very important. Let's look at number 2. It's asking us to describe the clockwise rotation about the origin from the pre-image to the image. So what we're going to have to do is I like to write down here's my A, here's my B, and here's my C, and then I'll write down what the primes are so we can decide which rotation it is. So A is at a 1 and a 1. B is at a 4 and a negative 1. And C, that is a 5 and a 1. So those are my 3 points that I have given in my pre-image where we're starting. Again, we know that this is the second one because it has those prime marks. So let's see what A prime, what B prime, and what C prime ordered pairs are going to be. So for A prime, it is at a 1 and a negative 1. 1, negative 1. For B, it is at a 4 and a negative 1. A 4 and want to make sure, 4, yep, and a negative 1. Okay, and for C, I am at a 1 and that's a negative 5. 1 and a negative 5. Okay, so now we've got to look at these rules. And I'm going to deal with looking at you can look at the first point, second point, third point, and then compare to make sure that they always meet the criteria. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick point C. When I see all these ones up there, it doesn't help me to see, does the numbers change order or anything? So here is where we started. And now we're looking for our transformation rule that is going to go ahead and give us the reflection. Well, let's look at C. I noticed that the Y and the X change places. So when I'm looking at the Y and the X changing places, I can either pick 90 degree, and it did say clockwise. I can pick 90 degrees, or I could pick 270 degrees for clockwise. But when I notice that, yes, the 5 and the 1 change places, I also notice that my 5 was positive and now it is negative. So again, my Y and X change places, and notice my Y stayed the same number, but my X went to the opposite. So I know my rule for this is going to be Y and a negative X. And when I'm looking at that and they said clockwise, this is 90 degrees is the clockwise rotation. And there is our answer. Again, writing down the ordered pairs, writing down the new image ordered pairs helps me recognize what the rule is. All right, so let's go to the third one. This time we have no picture, but we are given points. A pre-image has coordinates of a U, that's a -1 and 4, and a V, that's a -5 and an 8. The image has coordinates of, when they say image, remember that's the new one, U prime is 1, -4, and V prime is 5, -8. describe they told us again, clockwise rotation of this line segment. Okay? Well, I'm going to start by listing my U is at a -1 and 4, and here it is. And my V is at a -5 and an 8, right here. So now they told me U prime, the new image, is at 1, -4, right here, and that V prime is at 5, -8. So as I'm looking at this, I'm noticing that the numbers stay in the same order. So I know I've got to pick the one that has the X and the Y in the same order. Okay, so I'm looking up here, and guess what? There's just one of them. So let's see if what it has up here is true. It looks like it should be the opposite for each. Well, notice I have a -1 turns to a 1, and I have a +4 turns to a -4. Let's check the other one. A -5 turns to a 5, and the 8 turns to a -8. So for the rule, for this one, I know that here's my XY rule. It will be that, again, they were in the exact same order, so they were just the opposite. And what is the clockwise rotation? This is a 180 degrees clockwise rotation. 180 degrees. Again, it gets easy if you go ahead and you compare the ordered pairs, and definitely have this chart to refer to or make flashcards so that you can remember what the rotation rules are. If this video was helpful to you today, please add a like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more Math with Marcia. See you again soon.